Hello. I hope this is working at the moment. Can everyone see me? If you can see and hear me okay, someone just hit me up in the chat over here to let me know. I think we're live anyway. I think that's how this thing's working. Hey, Emily. Can everyone hear me okay? Anyone? No. I'm just going to assume it's working and go for it. So, hi guys. Welcome to Earth Live Lessons. I hope you can all hear me okay. My name's Ryan Atkinson. I'm a wildlife and expedition cameraman, and I was super psyched to be asked by Lizzie to come and share a bit of my story with you today. I hope you've been tuning into some of the other lives up until now, and have learned some awesome things. I've been sort of dipping in and out where I can. I'd love you to hit me up in the chat over here and let me know what your most interesting or the most exciting thing you've learned so far is. And please also fire any questions at me you have throughout, or being stung by scorpions, or being sick live on television. So how this is going to go, I'm going to start by telling you a little bit about myself, about kind of giving you a brief whistle-stop tour of how I got to where I am. And then I want to go into a bit more detail about why it is that I do what I do and what motivates me, and kind of focus in on a specific documentary I worked on some years ago called Expedition Volcano. So hopefully there'll be time to finish up at the end with a bit of Q&A. If anyone has any questions, feel free to ask me anything, whether it's kind of specific stuff I've talked about or any questions more broadly about wildlife camera work in the industry. So let's start with where I am now. Hopefully some, oh, no, that didn't work. Press the wrong button. Some images are going to come up over here. There you go, showing you what I do. As I say, I'm a wildlife and expedition camera person, and the vast majority of my work is for the likes of BBC, Netflix, National Geographic, on a whole variety of shows, stretching from what we call blue chip wildlife, like Planet Earth and Our Planet, all the way through to science and adventure expeditions. I'm something of a professional social distancer, but this current form of social distancing we're all doing is far more comfortable and warm than my average day at work. I've been doing this for about 10 years now. I've been fortunate enough to film in over 50 countries on 6 continents. Antarctica is the missing one, which is a constant source of frustration for me, because my specialty is in cold, high, and dangerous places. And it seems every time I get offered a job down in Antarctica, I'm already working on something else, but hopefully I'll get the opportunity before long. A lot of you will have seen the shows I've been involved in filming, like Our Planet, and you'll have seen how we do it during the diary sections at the end. But the bit that's not often talked about in any length and any depth is why we do it. And everyone's, got their own story on this. A lot of people kind of ask about my work and they say, is it what I always dreamed of? And frankly, if I'm honest, the answer is no. It wasn't until fairly late in my life that I decided what I wanted to pursue professionally. I've always been fascinated by environmental ecology. So I'm talking about biomes. And a biome is simply an area of the planet that can be classified according to the plants and the animals that live there. And I've always been really into the outdoors. So when I graduated from my degree, I really just wanted to go to amazing places, explore them through photography, and trick people into paying me to do that for a living. But as my career's progressed, so has my purpose and my passion for it. And the more of the world I've seen, the more environments I've immersed myself in, and the more wildlife I've learned about, I became fascinated not just by the environment, but by the biological, the geographical, and also the political issues that shape the world we live in. I started to notice, odd ways that humans and wildlife interact around the world, both with each other and with the environment that they live in, and the way this all has a knock-on effect to the politics of an area. With humans ultimately becoming a part of all of these different biomes. And it's been exploring these issues and the way we communicate conservation and wildlife stories from around the world that fires me up now. So, whilst beautiful wildlife cinematography in and of itself is an incredible thing, and I love having the privilege to kind of bring that to your screens. It's the motivation behind sharing these stories and the impact that they can have that I'm super interested in. So one program I wanted to talk to you about filming was Expedition Volcano. I've just noticed over here we've got an SW on the chat. Now that may or may not refer to the producer from Expedition Volcano. He might have tuned in here. But so hi if it is, Simon. In 2017, I traveled with a crew of about 15 filmmakers, scientists and presenters, including Dr. Xander, who many of you may have seen on Operation Ouch, to the DRC, which is the Democratic Republic of the Congo. You can hopefully see it here on your screens at home. The DRC is a huge, huge country, and it spans almost the entire width of the African continent. And we were interested in the eastern area of the DRC, specifically along the border with Rwanda and Uganda, and specifically in an area known as Virunga National Park. Oh no, I've just been told it's not Simon the producer, it's Sean Willis, so I'm off the hook there, but hey Sean anyway. And anyway, so we were interested in Virunga National Park. Virunga National Park is found on the western edge of the Great Rift Valley, which is an area of high tectonic activity. So what I mean by that is the Earth is made up of these plates of rock. We call it the crust of the Earth. And an area with lots of tectonic activity, it just means that these plates that make up the Earth's surface are kind of moving around and they're doing stuff here. And in this Earth's core, known as magma, is bubbling up towards the surface. And this was the reason that we were here. Virunga is home to one of only 7 active and exposed lava lakes found in the entire world. It's also the largest lava lake in the entire world. And it's found inside a volcano called Nyiragongo, which you can see here. You can just see the lava lake down inside the crater, hopefully. I'm just checking in on who we've got looking. Hey, Gemma. Hey, both Gemmas. So our plan was twofold, really, in visiting Nyiragongo. We wanted to descend inside the volcano's crater and, you know, have a bit of a poke around, as you do with massive, insanely hot, boiling lakes of fire. And we wanted to study the activity in the area with the hope of understanding what makes that particular volcano so unique and so dangerous. And secondly, we wanted to explore the human issues of the area. So the DRC is an incredibly poor country. It's seen a lot of war. And we were really interested to learn how a lot of the issues facing the people that live here can be traced back to the geology of the Rift Valley. So let's go into the volcano. That's Dr. Xander there in front of the lava lake. And filming in remote locations, normally on the blue chip shows, we have a crew size of just 2 or 3 people, and that's challenging enough. It's a huge, huge logistical operation just to get to the location, to support ourselves, to feed ourselves whilst working there, and to do it all well enough that we can focus 100% on bringing you the best possible images. In this situation, picture, if you can, a group of 15 people plus equipment. We were on for 2 weeks. Some of them were there for 3 weeks, and this is intense physical activity. So we're drinking and eating a lot of food. Then you've got all their clothing, all their camping gear. Like, that's a massive pile of stuff, right? So all of that needs to travel up the mountain to the crater rim. And that's where we set up our base camp, which is kind of upside down, right? Because base camps normally go at the bottom of a mountain. In this situation, we set up base camp at the top because what we wanted to do then was travel another 500 meters down inside the volcano crater itself, down a series of ropes that our team had fixed into the rock, and set up our advanced camp down there. So then throw in the massive lake of fire that I mentioned into the mix, and you kind of get a picture for what the whole thing felt like. I've seen a few people here asking me if I was afraid, and to be honest, yes, I was very afraid. It was terrifying. I've been climbing for, probably 15 years now, but that was by far like one of the most scary environments I've been in, but it was also just totally awe-inspiring. So if that all paints a picture of what it's like to work there, imagine now going further. So we're doing all of this wearing gas masks. Volcanoes release a number of gases into the atmosphere, and one in particular is called sulfur dioxide, and it stinks. But the worst thing about sulfur dioxide is that when it mixes with water or with saliva, it makes acid. So you really don't want to be breathing that in. And the whole time we were working there, we had to be carrying around and wearing these great big clunky gas masks. Some of the crew even had to sleep in them. You'd think it would be hot inside a volcano, but at over 3,000 meters above sea level, we had everything from blue skies and sun to heavy rains, heavy rainstorms, heavy snowstorms, and it was cold. It was really cold. You can see here some of the crew took to sitting inside these, we call them fumaroles, where they're vents where hot air and gas escapes from inside the volcano. So they were kind of perching inside these vents just to keep warm. And the air up there is also much thinner than at sea level. So walking just, 20 kilometers can seem like a huge effort. You get the picture. It's a tricky place to be. It is not designed for people. And imagine doing all of that whilst filming it. And that's what we were there for. So it was a huge effort. We had a team of over 100 local porters to help us carry all of our equipment up the mountain and get our camp established. I remember on the climb up seeing this one lady, local lady, probably about my age, and she had this beautiful, colourful dress and flip-flops on. And, there's me with all my hiking gear and my poles, and she's just flip-flops in this flowing dress. And she's scrambling up this rock face with a pelly case, an equipment case balanced on her head. Now, what she didn't know is that pelly case had about £25,000 worth of incredibly delicate lenses inside it. And we all saw this. We didn't know whether to laugh, whether to cry. So we just filmed it. But it was horrifying and amazing to witness at the same time. So it was absolutely worth all the effort to get up there, though. There's another picture here. You can see this is me with Dr. Zand and Kayla Iacovino, who was one of our volcanologist experts. And all in all, the crew spent about 2 weeks up this volcano. We installed a network of microphones to listen to the lava lake speaking. So these are super sensitive instruments that can pick up sounds you wouldn't normally be able to hear. And they help to tell us if there's movement of magma deep within the volcano itself. We began to install a network of other instruments that could tell us of any movement, any changes in the height of the mountain, and sense any vibrations coming through the rocks. We analysed gas samples and rock samples from different locations to help understand the chemical makeup of the volcano and how this could impact future eruptions. So this particular lava has a really high silica content. And what that means is that the lava is very fluid and very fast flowing. It's a real threat to the city of Goma, which is this huge city only a short distance from the volcano. So every second of warning that we could buy for the people living in Goma could save them a huge amount of lives in any future eruptions. As I say, the team spent about 2 weeks up there, but I left early, and I'm going to go on to tell you why I left early in a second. But let's just dig into some of the questions here. Take a bit of a break from me just talking at you for a while. So hi everyone, hi Gemma Douglas, hi Steve, hey Gemma Dixon. So I guess Caleb and Izzy are there as well. Hey you guys. So Milo, age 5, says, did you sleep next to the volcano and was there lava? So I was part of the crew that was stationed at the top rim of the volcano. So most of my work was around the top, and that's where I slept. And then there was another team that slept. I don't know if I can go back here. You can hopefully make it out there. That's our tent camp down inside the crater. So there were about 5 or 6 people, I think, that slept down there for a week while the rest of us were kind of working around the edges and popping in and out. And we had this amazing support crew of 4 rope guys who were just hard as nails, just, shuttling kit up and down the ropes and food and water for us all. Hey Kev, hey Gareth. Oh, that's my brother's tuned in. Catherine says, did you have to follow any specific precautions to follow working near the lava lake? Yeah, so the main one, like I mentioned, is the gas masks. We also had these gas sensors with us that would set off an alarm if they sensed some of the more dangerous chemicals and gases. So thankfully they didn't trigger it all, but they had to be carried with us all the time. And as I say, we had a crew of 4 rope experts, one of whom was also a paramedic, and he brought this sort of mini field hospital of equipment with him. Thankfully, nothing went wrong, but we were very well prepared if it had done, because in a place like that, there's no rescue team. We're our own rescue team. Milo would also like to know how close you got to the lava. We didn't actually get that close, because the volcano has sort of 2 tiers before the lava lake. So we went down to this first tier. You can just see it in this photo here coming around. And then we went down a second tier to where this tent was. But the rock down to this bottom tier where you could get right close to the lava lake, firstly, the rock's really unstable. Our expedition leader, Aldo Kane, went to have a look and decided it was too dangerous. Secondly, there's this sub vent on the side, and we didn't know if that was going to get active. If you look up Aldo Kane on Instagram or YouTube, you'll probably see some of his videos. A previous trip he'd done here, he'd gone all the way down, and that secondary vent was spewing lava out everywhere. So we just didn't want to take any unnecessary risks. Anyway, so let's move on. I'll do some more questions at the end. So I was going to say, yes, why I left early. So I've already mentioned how Virunga National Park is unique in terms of its tectonic activity. But for me, that is not the most exciting thing about it. Another thing unique to Virunga and not found anywhere else in the world are its gorillas, its mountain gorillas. So the Virunga Mountains of Central Africa and the impenetrable forest in Uganda are home to about 1,000 mountain gorillas, and approximately half of those live in the Virunga region. And these are the only populations of mountain gorillas found anywhere in the entire world, because the volcanic slopes of the mountainsides are the perfect habitat for these gorillas to thrive in. They range from about 2,000 to 4,000 meters up the sides of the volcanoes in a biome, buzzword, that we would call cloud forest. So we wanted to go and find these gorillas and film Dr. Xander as he chatted to the local community about the threats that the gorillas face and what the guys there are doing to protect them. I think for a lot of people, seeing mountain gorillas in the wild would be an absolute dream, and it was no different for me. So that hour-long walk into the jungle, I've got a picture you can... this is me walking in with the camera. I could feel my heart beating faster with every step. I was so nervous for what we were going to see. I remember we sat down about halfway through the walk for this little break. And after about 5 minutes of sitting down, drinking some water, having some food, Xander jumped up, sort of screaming and doing this crazy dance. And I had no idea what was going on. Absolutely no idea. But I knew it was funny, so I picked up my camera to film it. And as it turns out, Xander had never been in a jungle before. So unlike the rest of us who'd all tucked our shirts in and tucked our trousers into our socks, Xander was just kind of chilling out on the floor, hanging loose, doing his thing. And it turns out he'd sat in the midst of a colony of stinging ants. So he's jumped up and he's screaming, trying to pick these tiny little red ants off him that are biting, and they're all over his body. And so I get my wide action shots of this going on. No mercy, film everything. And then I moved in a bit closer, and I went up to Xander and I said, Xander, mate, could you just, that one you've just pulled off your stomach, could you just put it back for me so that I can get a close-up? And he obligingly did so, and I got my close-ups, but I don't think he's forgiven me to this day. Anyway, so, we move on from the rest. We're walking through this really dense scrub, trying to push our way through the undergrowth. And suddenly the lead ranger holds up his hand and points to a bush at our side. And you could just make out this tiny, tiny black blob, really, through the undergrowth. And I was a bit like, what is that here? I thought this was gorillas. But about a minute later, the most incredible thing happened. And the whole forest around us just started to move. We could hear branches cracking and trees shaking. And suddenly this whole group of I think it was about 12 to 14 mountain gorillas appeared just out of nowhere, pushing leaves out of the way, flattening bushes into a clearing all around us. And all I can say is that of all my interactions with animals, big and small, around the whole world, this was without doubt the most intense I've ever had. I'm a twin. My twin's actually here watching. That's Gareth. And I have no idea whether these are twins or not, but there were these two cute little newborn gorillas there, and you genuinely couldn't tell them apart at all. Gorillas have this thick, mountain gorillas anyway, have this thick black fur to protect them from the sometimes freezing temperatures at the altitudes that they live in. But because of patterning on the fur, on their faces, they're actually quite easy to tell apart. An interesting fact, actually, is that a mountain gorilla's nose print is unique to each animal, just like a fingerprint would be to you and I. So I was totally fixated on filming this one gorilla. You can see it here, this guy up in the tree. And suddenly I felt this hand on my shoulder, and it was the ranger I was with, just gently pulling me backwards. And I looked down in front of me, and only about 2 meters away, these two little, I'm going to call them twin gorillas, had rolled right up to me, and they just they ball up into a ball of fur and roll towards me. And they just sat there, bobbing their heads around, staring at me and my camera. I've looked at a lot of animals in a lot of detail, but locking eyes with those gorillas knocks the wind out of you, literally. They are so close to being human and so close to being able to communicate with us. You look into a gorilla's eyes and it feels like you're looking at another person. They even have human emotions. So gorillas have been known, when tickled, to laugh, and when they're hurt, they can cry. Although I would never recommend tickling a mountain gorilla or any large animal, to bear that in mind. You have to take a lot of precautions when you're going to see the gorillas. You're strictly limited in the amount of time you can spend with them. Humans share about 98% of their DNA with mountain gorillas, which means, amongst other things, we have to be very careful not to pass on diseases to them. It's actually not that dissimilar to this current situation we're in. You can see me wearing a face mask here. We all had to keep our distance and wear masks whilst filming them, because although the gorillas are generally very gentle and curious, we have to stay a distance away to protect them from any infections that we might have. And these gorillas, they are right in the middle of everything that is both good and bad about this region. They are absolutely defined by the environment that they're in. In fact, they evolved here because of the environment. So the volcanic activity in this region leads to incredibly fertile ground, which in turn supports this huge biodiversity of plant life in the forest. And gorillas are herbivores, so there's plenty for them to eat there. But at the same time, the volcanic activity has almost produced too many riches for the region. There's too many things for people to exploit. So there's farmland, there's incredible wildlife, there's minerals, there's wood, and everyone wants a piece of it. So the geography of this region plays a huge part in the politics and the biology and the future of the area, and that's something that we call geopolitics, and it's something I'm really fascinated in. The human tragedy in DRC is huge. It's seen decades of fighting. The minerals in the region can cause huge damage to human health as they get into the water supply. And so many people we met there had problems with their teeth and with nutrients. Buildings don't tend to last because of the acid in the rain. And even digging, sewers and toilets in your house, as the people have to do there, is a huge task because the rock is so hard and goes so deep. Maybe after this talk, some of you kids can go and try and dig a toilet in your own house and see just how hard it is, even with the nice soft ground we have here in the UK. Parents, you can thank me for that suggestion later. But you see what I mean? So everything ties back to these volcanoes. And hopefully you can see what I'm talking about here, where you see this is the city of Goma and this is Nyiragongo, and it is so close to the city. So the mountain gorillas, they exist here, as I said, because they can only exist here. They need this unique habitat that the volcanoes provide. And in turn, the money generated from tourism of people visiting the gorillas is all ploughed back into the local community. And the National Park there runs some great projects. Whilst we were there, they were using some of that money to build a hydroelectric power scheme, which basically means that the guys living in the local villages could turn on the light bulbs in their homes just by using the local rivers. And to me, this is what it's all about. So in programs like Planet Earth, series like Planet Earth, you see the best of the most beautiful wonders in the world, and that's amazing, and it's a privilege to be able to bring that to you. But there's also a lot that these series don't tend to show, and I think it's important to share what's going wrong in the world, because it isn't all okay. There is a lot of bad stuff going on, and there's a lot of animals that we've already lost. But what's important to me is I also want to share all these stories of hope. The ways that communities are, like in Virunga, are almost partnering with their local wildlife to forge a better future for both themselves and the wildlife that live there, and in turn a better future for all of humanity. So I think the conversation has to start with the difficult stuff like climate change and habitat loss, but it's important to me that these stories of hope are where the conversation ends. For example, we went to this one project run by widows of rangers who had sadly lost their lives protecting the environment and the wildlife in the area. And I remember Dr. Zand asking these ladies if they would want their young children to be rangers, just like their dads when they grew up. And without a second of hesitation, everyone in the room said yes. And it was such a moving and powerful experience to witness that. The people in this area know that the volcanoes cause some of their biggest problems, but they also know that the volcanoes are their best hope for a better future. And so that's why I do what I do. And it's why you guys should think about science and doing this kind of thing as well. It started out for me, as I said, as kind of selfishly wanting to see the world, but it's changed into this huge and irresistible passion to share stories and start conversations about how we can use science along with communication and politics to make a better future for everyone, humans and wildlife. So we're running out of time now. I've kind of waffled on enough. Let's just dig into a few more of these questions here. Emily D, oh, weren't we afraid? I think I've already said that one. Specific precautions. Caleb asking, how do you go to the loo? How did we go? I don't even remember. Every job's a bit different, to be honest. I can't remember how we went to the loo in the volcano. I remember being down a cave on a shoot once, and we had to go to the loo. We had to lay out these little squares, like put your fingers in the ears if you're squeamish. We had to lay out these little squares of cling film, go to the loo in that, ball it all up, put it in a little airtight container and carry it out of the cave with us, because we didn't want to affect the diversity of wildlife or any species in the cave at all. It's not a glamorous job. Any specific challenges for the equipment? Maybe hit me up on one of my social media feeds or something about that one, and I'll happily dig into the equipment a bit more with people interested in it afterwards. Was the science research happening anyway, or just because of the TV show? So there was a great project out there of local volcanologists that have teamed up with some Belgian scientists to develop an early warning system. So they're constantly monitoring the volcano anyway, and these Belgian scientists were going out to train up some of the locals in installing some of this new instrumentation. So we kind of tagged along on that, and we became a part of that project, as it were, for a short time. My brother says, is my desk usually that tidy? No, everything that's normally on my desk is behind the camera over there at the moment. How protected is the gorillas' habitat in the area? Very protected. As I say, they have 24-hour ranger patrols. They're constantly looking out for these gorillas in this habitat. There's a lot of threats, but the park are doing a huge amount of work and putting a lot of money and resources in protecting the whole area. So anyway, I think this is kind of, I've already run over quite a bit. Sorry, Lizzie. So let's move on now. But you can follow me on my Instagram here. It's at Ryan Atkinson Cam. Keep asking me questions, DM me with any other questions that I've not got to or anything else you think of. And I'd love to hear from you about what you've enjoyed about this talk. If you're watching from the States, I'm going to do a little shameless plug here. I've got a new series that I was part of the camera team for, is coming out soon, called The Molecule That Made Us. It's all about water and how it shaped the natural history of our planet. So keep your eye out for that on PBS if you're over in the States. do make sure you tune in this afternoon for another Earth Live lesson. You're spoiled today. There's another 2 today, I think, so you've got 3 in one day. And the next one starts at 2 p.m. Where it's the Eden Project from Cornwall. And they're going to be bringing the rainforest right into your living room. So you'll be able to picture these gorillas that I've been talking about. Anyway, I hope you've all really enjoyed this. As I say, do hit me up with your questions and hopefully catch you all really soon. Thanks for tuning in, everyone.